Welcome, everybody, to the February 28th meeting of the Radnor Environmental Advisory Council. I'd like to first ask for the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Okay. Any comments, corrections? Thank you. Thank you, Ann, as always. Much appreciated. So do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up, we have I'd like to welcome our new representative from the Parks and Recreation Committee, Luke Clark. Luke is taking over from Chris Campbell, who did a great job. So welcome, Luke, and we'll ask for your update in the liaison report section, but if there's anything you'd like to add now, please do so.
Sure. Just want to say I'm excited to help, and yeah, Chris did a great job. He's updated me on everything, so looking forward to serving, and I appreciate meeting everybody.
Great. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And next we have announcements. Happy to say that while we can't see it on our screens, Jim is going to actually be broadcasting these announcements so that the folks at home... Oh, I stand corrected. This is terrific. So I think this will make it a little easier for folks to follow along on these announcements. Josh Hilbert, our chairman, typed these up, and we can also add to these, but I think there are at least 3 or 4 really exciting events coming up, including an electronics collection event in March at Bonner and Prendergast High School in Drexel Hill. It's free collection for anything with a plug, proceeds to benefit the school. And along these same lines, I'd also add that our very own Radnor Public Works Department is also going to be running another electronics collection event in June, June 15th at the Willows. The time is to be determined. But the last event, which was in February 9th, collected over 30,000 pounds of electronics. This is I think the second or third event that the Township has had, which is terrific. I would like to thank Peggy Hagan for sending those that data along about the success of the last event. But next one in our Township is June. Sure.
I just happened to see that it says proceeds to benefit the school. So I wonder if it would be helpful information going forward for the Township to indicate if there's a salvage value or whatever value there is to this stuff.
Well, I think it's a very good question. I think the arrangement that and it raises a good question, but I believe the arrangement that the Township has had has been to not receive any proceeds, but also not to be charged anything for the collection services. And the groups that they used, at least the time I went out, really did quite a lot of work, sent several big trucks out and really a team. So it's a good question. I think we should ask if there's a way to get any sense. Obviously, it's not Township property that's being collected, but if there is a value, it would be interesting to see if it's tracked. So I think it's a good question.
Especially because they anticipate making proceeds at, the 2 schools.
That's right. Okay. Next announcement is that there is an Environmental Community Service Award. 2 schools will each be awarded $5,000 to enhance environmental programs. It's a team of Wawa, NBC 10, and the environmental law firm of Manco Gold that are looking for school classes, clubs, or teams from the 6th to 12th grade students that have worthwhile environmental community service projects demonstrating a connection to their community. These are due, unfortunately, they're due very shortly, due next Monday. But that's certainly an attractive award for interested teams. Next up is the Environmental Youth Leadership Conference at the Pocono Environmental Education Center, March 15th through the 16th. And it's focused at teachers and students from Pennsylvania middle and high schools. And they're going to be attending workshops, presenting a poster session, and there are going to be various activities to present some green solutions to the attendees of the conference. Next up, there's a Pennsylvania, New Jersey Sustainability Symposium, which will be held March 12th at Temple. Don't miss this spring's biggest Green Build 2013 host city event. Now in its third year, this event will bring together over 600 industry, university, and community leaders to share best practices, ask challenging questions, and provide cutting-edge information about sustainability in the Delaware Valley. Join a growing and diverse community of sustainability-minded individuals who will be covering a wide range of topics such as green schools, the business model for sustainability, Philadelphia cultural and sports institutions, LEED certification, commercial real estate owners and tenants, electric vehicles, and much more. And before we open the floor to other announcements, I did want to also add one that the Haverford Township EAC sent along, that on Earth Day this year, April 21st, they're going to be having a slate of Earth Day activities at their Community Recreation and Environmental Center, including an informal electric vehicle and hybrid vehicle expo. So they're looking for volunteers and residents to show and talk about their EV cars, hybrid cars, and hybrid electric bicycles. If anybody has any bicycles, they'd be very interested. So that's fun. I'm going to plan to attend and would urge others to come on by. So I think those were the announcements. Other announcements, Sally, did you have something you wanted to?
I have a couple, and I will be, I've signed up to attend that sustainability symposium, so I can report back
great.
on that. There were a couple other announcements that came from Delaware Valley Green Building Council that might be of interest to people. The state is going to be has revised and reopened two programs of interest. One is Alternative and Clean Energy program, and the other is the High Performance Building program. And so for the Alternative and Clean Energy program, there is going to be, I believe, loan or grant money available. And the same with the High Performance Building program. I'm just trying to summarize this really quickly. And more information can be found at the website of the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. So that was one thing. The other thing is, I just wanted to maybe quickly share a couple takeaway thoughts from an Academy of Natural Science Urban Sustainability Forum event that I went to this past week that was on the subject of natural disaster preparedness, which of course overlapped with climate change. The whole evening, which was titled about Philadelphia, really wasn't a whole lot about Philadelphia. It was fairly general in its scope, but there were a couple of points made that I thought were kind of interesting. One was that a lot of the adaptation efforts that would be helpful both in connection with climate change and, well, specifically in connection with climate change, but would feed into natural disaster preparedness are the kinds of things that are already being done for other reasons, things like planting trees for beautification. And so a lot of it's sort of common sense stuff. Another point is that adaptation efforts are very cost effective, but they can also be done wrong. And for example, you don't want to create improper incentives, and you want to have accountability. So for example, you don't want to give people incentives to build in the wrong places when it comes to the issue of climate change or natural disaster preparedness. Another thing was how important it is to know the details about your local community when it comes to natural disaster preparedness. One speaker made the point, and she was an out-of-towner, but she did a little research. 36% of Philadelphians don't have cars. And so if you're trying to plan for natural disaster preparedness and you have, the point is everyone has to be able to evacuate within 8 hours. Well, how are you going to get all those people out of town? So it's important to know the details of the specific community. And finally, one other speaker made the point that when he goes to speak to local groups, I guess like ours, people tend to be very responsive to hearing about the importance of taking adaptation measures, but by the same token, people tend to be very leery of spending money. So those were sort of the takeaway items that I thought would apply pretty universally.
Great. Thank you. Other announcements, Robin, did you have any?
Sloan, I had one announcement, which is that the annual Darby Creek cleanup, watershed-wide cleanup, will take place on April 27th, and there will be cleanup locations from the top of the watershed all the way down to the Heinz Refuge. The website to look into that is www.dcva.org. And their contact people. And there will be, I'm pretty sure there'll be a cleanup location in Radnor, but we'll be figuring out where when we see where the need is the greatest. One or more sites.
Great.
And then I did want to mention this. I thought this would be useful for people to know. This is a new publication that's come out from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and it's the title is Smarter, Cooler, Practical Steps for Low Carbon Living. And, there are a lot of these 10 steps to reduce your carbon diet books on the market, but this was researched by Union of Concerned Scientists, and one of them was in town recently and described the just really rigorous research they did. They looked at 500 sectors of the economy, and what they were really trying to do was to sort of break through all of the morass of information and give consumers guidance on, where to put their efforts, where to put their focus in terms of trying to reduce their carbon footprint. And so it's very useful in terms of identifying the areas to focus on and how to not sweat the small stuff, which is what they talk about. So the likely areas are transportation. We would expect this, but transportation, heating and cooling, and then consumer purchases are where the lion's share of the issues are. So they kind of harken back to the amount of time people spent debating paper or plastic bags versus what they were putting in the bag. Well, same thing here. Don't focus so much on whether or not you're air conditioning your car or leaving the window open. It's more important to focus on how you're driving and what kind of car you're driving, kind of thing. So very useful, a lot of very useful facts. And again, cooler, smarter, practical steps for low carbon living. It's at the, you can find it on their website, www.ucs.org. Thanks.
Great. That sounds like a good resource. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Next up, we have the annual report for the EAC from last year. I made a few copies. I'm not sure I've got one for everybody, but this was sent around previously, so I don't think there have been any changes from the version that we reviewed. But would like to just first of all thank our former chairperson Brenda Gotanda, who put this together, and among her many services to the township was she was terrific in collecting the work of the EAC in this annual report. So thank you, Brenda. just highlighting some of the items in the annual report. It touches on the EAC workshops that we worked on last year. One on the greenhouse gas action plan, sustainability and watershed partnership, stormwater, open space, and environmental education. Last year, the highlights of the activities included the work that we did on the greenhouse action plan and putting in place a green team with the support of the Board of Commissioners. And we'll be talking more about this. We're holding regular meetings with the green team and are going to be forming essentially working groups on various recommendations within that plan, but we'll talk more about that. The sustainability series, we held a number of those last year, specifically one on electric cars and another one on stormwater management. She included the update on the WaterSense partnership, and I won't go through all these, but there are quite a few other items in here. So, again, thank you, Brenda, for putting this together. Any comments or suggestions before we vote to approve it? I'll note that it's already been posted on the township website on the Radnor Green page. But if there are no comments, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Please say
Aye.
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 Okay. And I should also note that Brenda is going to be attending, we hope, the next EAC meeting, so we can thank her in person for all her great work. And next up, we've got an update on the Radnor Green team, and we've had two very useful green team meetings in the last few months. Would like to thank Melissa Kahn on the township staff, who's the leader of the green team. She's done a great job of pulling together people from all the different departments and parts of the township. At our kickoff meeting, we had representatives, I think, of every branch of the township, and this most recent meeting, we had a very interesting presentation on greening the township offices. So the green team is moving forward, and in terms of next steps, Josh and Melissa and I had a discussion about how to make the green team as effective as possible, and the thought is that we can focus on some of the high priority items and work closely with the green team. The EAC can have folks who are focusing on different topics and coordinating directly with township point people on different topics. This way, the green team is more a way to report on progress than a place where all the myriad little decisions and discussions would take place. I think it's a way to make it much more just easier to get some progress. So, with that in mind, the top priorities, the things in the plan that we think are worth focusing on at first, out of the 15 or so, there are 5. The first is really 2 recommendations, one on greening the traffic signals and the street lights. And Josh has offered to be the point person from the EAC on these topics. The idea will be that we'll send these off to Melissa, who will put us in touch with the point person from the township. So there'll be a little subcommittee or working group on each of these topics. And the idea would be that the working group would report back here to the EAC on what's going on within that topic. at future meetings. The second important priority is green power purchasing, which was item number 7 on the plan. And Robin, I believe you had offered to take a lead on that. The next is efficiency improvements in Radnor's buildings. It was items 9 and 10 in the plan. Sally, are you willing to take the lead? Thank you. That's great. Another one is the greening of the township vehicle fleet, and that's something that I'm quite interested in. So I'm going to be the point person on that. And then finally, developing a green procurement policy, item 13. And Ann, I think you were going to lead that charge. So that's fantastic. So I also wanted to say, anybody who wants to help out on any of those working groups, please feel free, or more than one. So this is in no way exclusive to any of the folks who are leading the charge, but please feel free to sign up for any of those working groups as we move forward. So anything we should add on that? Robin, I think you were at both of those green team meetings. I think.
Summarize it well.
Good. Okay. And let's see. Next up is the WaterSense update. So, Luke, we Radnor Township is a promotional partner with the EPA's WaterSense program, and that's an effort to label products, household products, as water efficient, so they get a WaterSense label. We've been looking for ways to promote WaterSense, and last fall we discussed and actually approved a resolution in support of a state tax holiday for WaterSense labeled products. I've recently done a little bit of research on what other states have in place, and there are about half a dozen or so states that have tax holidays for WaterSense products. All of them also include Energy Star products. So I did a little research into Energy Star. Energy Star has been around longer than WaterSense. It's been around about 20 years. Very successful program. It's a joint effort of EPA and the Department of Energy. They label about 40,000 products, Energy Star does. It's a far longer list than the products that bear a WaterSense label. So in doing this research, I think it makes sense to try to combine the tax holiday concept and include Energy Star products as well as WaterSense products. So with that in mind, I revised the proposed resolution to include Energy Star products, and I've got a copy of the resolution which I can share. And I guess I won't repeat what we've already discussed about WaterSense, but I will read the new language about Energy Star. Whereas Energy Star is a joint program of the U.S. EPA and the Department of Energy, helping us all save money and protect the environment through energy-efficient products and practices. Whereas Americans saved more than $23 billion on their utility bills in 2011 with the help of Energy Star, and prevented an amount of greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to what 43 million vehicles would produce. Whereas in 2011, Energy Star helped Americans save more than 277 billion kilowatt hours, about 5% of total U.S. energy demand. Therefore, be it resolved, we're going to add the Energy Star products to the resolution. So, any
Yes. You think 1 week is enough?
well, it's I think
Or should it be twice a year?
it's an interesting question. If I'm remembering correctly, and I did a survey of all the states, I believe the other states have 1 week each. It's at different times of the year, but I don't think there's more than one tax holiday in any other state. Doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but I think at least at this point it looks like the other states are using one week a year. I have spoken with representatives of the revenue departments from Virginia and the energy department from Texas. I'll say that they both were very supportive of having both WaterSense and Energy Star in the tax holiday. They said theirs are successful. Virginia had an estimate, not a hard number, but an estimate of how much it cost the state in terms of lost revenue, and it was less than $200,000. Felt that it was a very a good way to encourage folks to go out and purchase these items. Probably would be even more effective if it was more than once a year, but
We're not going to be first, but we could be better.
we certainly could.
And the other thing is you might get retailers to cross-promote the concept.
Both states mentioned that really they work closely with and really rely on the retail community to get the word out. The retailers are really, very, very enthusiastic to, at least in those states, to use it as a way to get folks in. So I think that's a big part of it. Okay, other comments, questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion to support the amended resolution.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I support it, but I would like to see 2 weeks.
How about next year? We'll do 2 weeks. Thank you.
John, I was just thinking that the green building community could also be very helpful in terms of
That would be great, and yeah, be very grateful for thoughts along those lines as to where we might go. I think we'll try to get the Board of Commissioners to support it, and after that, would love to get suggestions on others who might be interested and supportive. So, thank you. Okay, and next up is liaison reports. Luke, do you want to start us off with that?
Sure. As a liaison for the Parks and Recreation Board, we have a few things going on right now. We just passed on our recommendation regarding the Willows property to the Board of Commissioners. We were charged with taking the essentially top 4 proposals that we believe met the Township Manager's goal as well as the Board of Commissioners' goals, and we passed them on to the Board of Commissioners. They are going to have these 4 that we recommended, the contractors or caterers, whoever they may be, they're going to have them come back in front of the Board of Commissioners and put on public proposals. They also pulled in a fifth one that they believed met their goals. And again, they're going to have all of them go through the public process before the Board of Commissioners. So that was the number one thing that we were doing when I came onto the board. That was just done in December and January of this year. We have events coming up, the Easter egg hunt, car show, and they're all on the website. I understand they're pretty popular. I'm looking forward to going to them myself. They just had the father-daughter dance at the Willows Mansion not too long ago. So that's what's happened recently and what's coming up in terms of events. And in terms of I sit on the trail subcommittee, and currently what we're looking into right now is extending the trail over either across or under Radnor Chester Road into Martha Brown's Woods. which hopefully will be part of a larger trail system that will connect in Chester County and also in Philadelphia. So we're doing a feasibility study or getting one done to see if that's something that we can get grant funding for from the state, from DVRPC and DCNR. We're actually going to take a hike through Martha Brown's Woods as well to get a direct a feeling on what exactly this trail is going to be going into, assuming we can get the funding, the PennDOT permits, permission from the school district that actually owns that parcel, things of that nature. So we're also looking into whether we can get a southern trailhead, a southern trail access off of Conestoga Road, right near the gas station and the little stores, right where Newtown Road comes into Conestoga. We're also looking into the feasibility of possibly having a southern access point for the trail down there. So again, this all depends on getting permits from PennDOT, funding, things of that nature. Right now, we're just getting into whether it's feasible or not. So, and obviously that'll be put before the board and up for public comment and everything. So we're looking into what the cost will be and things of that nature. So
Great.
those are the current events with Parks and Recreation right now.
Great. That's great. That's exciting.
Yeah, something we're looking forward to. Hopefully it works out. My wife and I use the trail all the time, so we're hoping it's something that we can do.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's where we are.
Thanks. Skip, do you want to update on Planning Commission?
At the beginning of this month, there were two meetings again. The first meeting was devoted entirely to Villanova, and I was able to attend that. The second meeting was the institution rezoning issues for all the colleges, et cetera, and I was out of town for that. I have updated everyone on the commission here with the latest information that I basically got today. This will be discussed next Thursday with regard to the institutions. Villanova kind of dovetails with what's being discussed because hypothetically the new ordinance would change their approach. Right now they're just basically trying to bypass the existing ordinances and not seeking zoning relief because it's a more streamlined process. And they've worked with the township before it got to planning to discuss this and see if they could figure out the right path that would satisfy everyone. As you may imagine, there are a lot of neighbors coming to the meetings and commenting, and there's a lot of interest in the Villanova proposal. I just today received information for Monday's meeting. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, to see how the proposal's changed, but it will be topic 1 through 100 and nothing else on Monday. So I will keep you advised, and I'll certainly endeavor to keep you guys copied on things that I get that are obviously appropriate to what we do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You've been very helpful on that. And I did take a quick look at the PI zoning draft, and the section F, green incentives, looks like it's largely the same as it has been. It looks as if they're adding a provision about asking for a minimum of 1 electric vehicle recharging station for electric motor vehicles if an institution has more than 1,000 total parking spaces. I'm not sure if that's new. It looks like it's new, but either way, it's great to see.
I think that is new.
That's great. It's a great ad.
I'd also if I had been at that meeting, I would have asked for a higher number, but.
Yeah. That would be great. But certainly to
is-
have something in is a wonderful step in the right direction.
Just like the green roof language, I think should be enhanced. 4 inches is not enough dirt.
Right.
I mean, to have the full effect that a green roof can have.
So you're saying the definition of a green roof requires that, or defines it with a minimum of 4 inches of depth of soil, vegetation with 4 inches depth of soil. Is it something? What's useful in terms of the process? Is it useful if we have suggestions to send them on to you, or what's the best way to?
I think particularly on those aspects, if you are interested in presenting, it's kind of hard for me to have an independent agenda. It works better a little bit from the audience. I mean,
Yeah.
but I will say it if no one says it, that the
Right.
roof is too thin, et cetera.
Right.
We got a very elaborate presentation on that when we were looking at Luella Court, and you can easily have 12 to 18 inches of planning material. And actually, there's special things that help you on the retention, water retention side and everything else. There's the way it's constructed, and it's like a egg crate structure underneath it all. So
Okay.
I think that it's a good start to even suggest that green roofs would be a basis for some kind of incentive with regard to other relief that you might need for your project. But I think that the current language is very green roof light.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm working on it. But if
Good.
But if
All
you choose to attend, I'd be happy to make sure you get in before 9 o'clock.
As you did last time.
I'd
Thank
just throw something in there. The Philadelphia Water Department, which gives credit for green roofs now, they actually only require a 3-inch thick medium, but what they're really trying to control is just the first inch of rainfall. That's what's causing their problems with combined sewer overflows and so on. You know, I love roofs that have 12 to 18 inches, but I would say, you know, you're like just significantly increasing the cost of a construction with a building like that, because you've now
I'm
got
willing to
just
listen
a
to an
much bigger
engineer.
structure that you have, and that often will kill a green roof for
Right.
you know, a potential builder, as they can't afford to have this increased structure. And
But if you're, I know that the roof on Luella Court is a lot more than, it's like 12 inches or something. Is there a happy medium? Do you have a
well, it's
professional
all going to
opinion?
come down to what are you trying to manage. And like I said, in the city of Philadelphia, they're not so much worried about the 100-year flood. They're trying to get these
Even Luella Court only does a 2-year or 5-year flood.
right now. Something,
That being said, look at the water problems we have in Radnor Township.
yeah.
I mean, every time you can do something, and it's also, you know, the carbon issue. The load on that building is going to be less in terms of heating and cooling, whatever that is.
Yeah, there's going to be those trade-offs. You know, an interesting fact about this area of Pennsylvania is I believe it's 85% of the annual rainfall volume falls in storms of less than 2 inches. So to capture a small amount of rain, that's doing a big deal in the long haul. What it's not doing is, you know, when you have those really big floods, they're not going to solve that problem, but they're going to help remediate it.
It'll get the first 5 years of the 100. I don't know. You know, it's still
Yeah.
captured.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't rely on it as a water retention strategy. It just is an adjunct to that kind of a approach. You know, and there are other reasons for green roofs besides.
Oh, sure. Sure.
You know,
Yeah, you
back
mentioned
to
the
that.
insulating, and it even, you know, it's been shown to increase the lifespan of roofs because there's not this constant expansion and contraction of joints, so that roof systems tend to last longer.
Oh, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
that's actually a positive from the structural.
Like a life cycle,
cycle.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great, because I would think some concern would be, oh, is this going to be, you know, a detriment over time? But it sounds like so far
Right.
it's so good.
Yeah, and I mean, there are systems now where they have sort of these electronic grids through the roof so that if a leak were to develop, they can instantly pinpoint where that is and go
Oh, that's
fix the
great.
problem.
That's great. Well, I think Skip has been very good about inviting us to comment on this. I guess we can send emails to you, and Sally, you had an idea about in terms of looking at maybe international legal standards. I don't know if that's something that meshes on this, but
I'm not sure if I know enough about it yet to recommend it, but I just started learning a little bit about the International Green Construction Code, and from what I understand so far, a municipality like ours couldn't just adopt it. So the thing to do would be to see where something like that could be implemented in small ways, and something like zoning or stormwater management is the kind of area where perhaps it can be thought of as an incentive, an option, same way that the lead language is already in this section that you're talking about. So I guess one question is, would it be adding anything to even think about mentioning the IGCC in this context? I'm not sure it would. I
well, I
wanna
think it
about
would
that
be
a little.
very helpful if you would take a look at what the Planning Commission is considering in light of that international standard, and you can let us and Skip know if there are any helpful suggestions, or if it speaks to things that are specifically laid out in this. Maybe it has a different range, or some information that we could use to benchmark what we're proposing here.
I'll look into it. I didn't hear what you just said, Skip.
I said that, I kind of sent some of these late in the day because I got them late in the day. You may not have seen it. I sent all the information we're just talking about by email, so you have these documents now too.
Right.
Can I
You'd
just
be welcome, of course, to our long meeting.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Sloan, Sally, so your point is that as incentives, Radnor might be able to adopt those code elements even though we couldn't adopt that set of standards as code?
Yes,
Okay.
in appropriate situations and contexts.
An incentive can still be part of the code. When you say code, you're thinking of it as if you don't do this, you're penalized, but
Well, in other words,
Having it-
as I understand it, the building codes, we're kind of waiting on the state to adopt a reformed.
well, a uniform building code, yes. But at the zoning and land use level, I think we can plug these things in as incentives. And there is a little bit of gray in all the land use and zoning. There are negotiations. Sometimes we grant waivers of a particular requirement because it makes sense. So just having it in there makes it a point of discussion and possibly of agreement.
Right.
Just throw out that maybe something to consider is, my feeling is any green roof is better than no green roof. So is there a way to, a 3-inch green roof is worth this, but an 18-inch gets you this much more benefit?
Well, we're advisory. I'm sure the commissioners will decide if 4 inches is enough or not. That's why I would appreciate any input from you or anyone else who has expertise in the area, because all we get is we got that one detailed presentation about how terrific the Luella Court roof would be, but there is a range. I mean, there are 24-inch roofs, and I know structurally we're talking about a big problem there. You know that the material is not necessarily soil. I'm sure you know that. So the real issue is the weight of the water more than the planning material or the medium.
Well, then, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that, F3 of the proposed ordinance, and forwarding any comments or suggestions would be great. Okay. Thanks, Skip. I think that's it for liaison reports. Old business. Dan, I don't know if we should put the Wren grant update. Maybe you'd like to give an update on that, and we can also talk and comment on it. And I think, Ann, you'd also done some work on that, so maybe you guys can let us know where we stand on that.
Yeah, I haven't really pursued anything further with a Wren grant application for this round. I did tune into the webinar yesterday that was put on. I think it's called the American Rivers Association, something like that. And they had a person from Wren speaking, and then also a person from Penn Vest. And I caught sort of the second half, which was mostly about Penn Vest. And just some interesting information there. Since 1988, they've funded a little over $7 billion for 3,000 projects. It's been mostly wastewater treatment plants, probably at sort of it looked like about a 10-to-1 ratio compared to like stormwater and non-point source, and they do some stuff with acid mine drainage and that sort of thing. They've got $342 million available for fiscal year 2013-2014. Their first priority is to give low-interest loans. And so out of that 342, they're looking at probably 300 million going to loans and 42 million going to grants. And that grant money is mostly coming from state and federal sources. But they have started to pick up with stream improvement projects, other urban stormwater projects, improving parks, They had rain garden and porous pavement examples. Here was something that was interesting to me, was that before they decide if they're going to give, whether it's a loan or a grant or a combination, the project needs to be completely designed. So if it's sort of an engineering, it's got to be done, and then they'll decide if, you know, they'll extend their funding to you. So, you know, that's got some implications, right? Like, if you don't really have the money, do you pay an engineer or whoever it takes to design something completely, and then
Well, how much are designs for, you know, the kind of projects that we're talking about? I mean, are they?
you know, you know, for sort of like a basin retrofit
Yeah.
kind of thing that we've been talking about. I mean, I would say, depending what you're doing there, I mean, it probably could be, if it's really you're just landscaping it, you know, you could probably do that for a few $1,000s with a small landscaping firm or, you know, a landscape architect. You know, if you're getting into more of an engineering modification, you know, you could be in the $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 range.
Just
Again,
on the engineering,
Right.
on the design.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And those, you know, like anything, it's kind of a matter of scale and complexity, but those might be some ballparks. Really, their biggest rating criteria now, they have a number of rating criteria, you know, for are you meeting these things or providing these things, and the number one right now is water quality. So that, you know, plays well into the basin retrofits. That's really the purpose of a basin retrofit is water quality. And then there's some flooding advantages also, or flood abatement advantages. And then the last bit is that they can only accept applications from township entities right now. So
What constitutes a township entity? Are we a township entity?
I would think, well, certainly Radnor Township. And I think it'd kind of be along the lines of how we did the Wren grant, right? We had the Public Works group in there and the EAC. So I think we could. So I want to have a couple more conversations with some people at the township, but, you know, that sticking point for me is, you know, get this thing completely designed and then find out if you get any money. You know, whereas the Wren thing, you kind of, you fill out the form, you got a great idea, okay, you got the money, okay, now we'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah. But I think maybe in one of the pieces you sent along, you talked about how Wren might sync up a little bit with Penn Vest, and maybe could there be a sort of a joint venture where there's a piece that was used from
Right.
maybe from Wren to do, I think that you were describing education, but maybe could there be some design piece of that?
I guess, I mean, the example that the Wren grant coordinator gave me was, well, first thing she said, and I sort of took this away from the webinar yesterday also, is that, you know, Penvest is looking for big improvements with, you know, like spending big money on a big project that makes a big impact. So what she said, you know, if you could get Radnor Township to convert all of its detention basins and then use the Wren grant for sort of an education process of sort of, you know, garnering support for that, I guess. But obviously that's a huge undertaking. Like, I don't think Penvest is going to, you know, give us money to go do the cow and rain garden, you know.
Yeah. Is that more a Wren?
That would be more of a Wren level,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank
So-
you for that. And Andy, do you want to add anything? You did some additional
Well,
work on that?
I had circulated to the group some thoughts, because Dan was suggesting trying to go for a Wren grant for detention basin work, and then there's also the question of whether we would go back to the rain garden type of project that Dan worked up last spring. So I spoke to Steve Norsini, because anything we do has to be township related, and ran the detention basin idea by him. And I don't know, Dan, you may know, I don't know how many detention basins the township has. It sounds as if most of the detention basins are privately owned. So you'd work with a homeowners association.
Yeah, I don't know anything in terms of quantity, but that's correct, that he said the majority of them are privately owned by HOAs.
And the one that he said that the township owned and could use a grant would require about $90,000. So clearly out of the range of anything that Ren grants would be used for.
For design, was that, or for the actual?
I think that's for the actual repair, but I didn't go into details because it was clearly, I was exploring Ren grant applications, and those were more in the $3,000 range, so it's just a different order of magnitude. So I think down the road, it would be great if we could approach a homeowners group and get some homeowners group that has responsibility for a detention basin to work with us on improving it, planting it with natural plants and whatnot. But I don't foresee that happening between now and the Ren grant date this year. Now, one piece of good news is that because we're now a bird town, an Audubon bird town, Audubon will give us some assistance with grant writing if it's something that they see as a bird promoting, habitat promoting project. So of course that goes with almost any planting of natural habitat. So I think they'll be our partner. Steve Norsini was very interested in going back to the rain garden idea, and he identified two places where he would like to explore Ren funding. One would be to complete a rain garden at Cowan Field, and the other that he thought would be great because while small, it's very high visibility, is next to the Wayne Wawa. There's a traffic triangle where those two streets come together. That's owned by the township. So the rain garden idea there, it's currently planted, but I think it doesn't probably serve much of a water gathering function. So if you turn that into a rain garden, it could get the public's attention for what you can do with a small rain garden, and Audubon could help us get it planted. So I think at this point it makes sense to pursue one of the rain garden options, and I don't know who's around to help work on it, but I know Dan's too busy.
My concern is if you look at the Garrett Hill application, I think we went in with 4 team members. I think they had something like 8. And they had Villanova University involved and a number of other organizations. And, my concern is can we sort of get everyone lined up in basically 3 weeks now, or maybe 4?
Well, I think we could probably go back to those partners, and we'd add Audubon to the list, which I think would be a plus. So, and there was some discussion in the Birdtown meeting about an interest at Villanova, so I think we could reach out to the Villanova people and perhaps get them on board as well.
I mean, it sounds like it's worthwhile at least trying. I mean, obviously your
Here's what I can do, and I can't believe I'm doing it. I can reach out to these folks. I can take our last year's application and basically change the words to say Cowan Park instead of the township building, but I can't.
Yeah,
I
do
don't
much
know that
more
I
than
can
that.
take to some higher level, and I can't
Right.
say whether or not that's going to push us
Right.
over the
I think that's
the
fair
acceptance
enough.
limit or
I think
not.
that's fair enough, and especially if Audubon maybe has a little resource that they could help us. I think that would
Okay.
at least put us in the run.
And I'll work on it with Dan. I'm hoping that we can
Oh, good.
manage to put it
Okay,
together.
great.
Okay.
Okay, good. Do you need any feedback in terms of the ideas? It sounds like the highest probability is the Cowan Park.
That kind of
rain-
makes sense to me. I mean, that's
Okay.
that's right on the
Okay.
edge of a stream.
Yeah,
It's
it
an
does.
important area for
It
some
does.
kind of water control.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, so,
And the nice thing there, it's really been constructed. It almost really just needs some soil and some planting, and that's what I was talking
Yes.
with Steve Norsini about, just sort of doing separate from this. But I'm fine if we
Right.
use it to
Okay.
try and chase a grant for it. And then I guess if we don't get the grant, we can still pursue just with Steve
Yeah.
and make it happen.
yeah.
Separately.
Is the Penvest, is this likely to be multi-year? Or
Well,
is
they've been
this
going since 1988
Okay.
and $7 billion, so I didn't do the math,
Okay.
but
Well,
they've
that
got
sounds-
342 million just for this year, so.
Okay.
And I think that's how he opened it. I mean, it started where they were, I think they were only supposed to be sort of a 1-year
Yeah.
kind of experiment, and now it's
Yeah.
been
It's
25
been
years.
25. That's
Yeah.
great. The reason I ask is I'm on a township stormwater advisory committee that's been meeting. It's about 20 or so people meeting every month or so to talk about the pretty serious stormwater issues and what the township can and should be doing about it, and looking at the considerable need to improve infrastructure. I mean, we have a very elaborate stormwater control system, but it hasn't been terribly well maintained. It's 56 miles, I think, of pipe, and we haven't been investing a lot to keep that up to date. And part of it is a network of some detention basins that have not been well maintained, as well as some private facilities like the homeowner association detention basin. So there's clearly a big problem that's very apparent whenever there's a flood in the center of town, or particularly around some neighborhoods. There's flooding in North Wayne that's very dramatic. But that's an ongoing effort, and I think there's going to be a recommendation made to the Board of Commissioners coming out of that. That said, I think regardless of what the township's doing on its own, an effort that would encourage some of the private organizations, homeowner associations, to restore some of their detention basins as well would be a tremendous plus. And so maybe not for this year, but if it's an ongoing source of possible funding, I think that Penvest approach might be a really good idea, down the road, if not this year.
Yeah, I know that the Pennsylvania Environmental Council has given talks on these specifically targeted to HOAs, so I can make some calls there, and
That would be great.
maybe we could get one of those folks in here and,
Yeah,
and
that
then
would
reach
really
out
be
to
a
a
good
bunch
idea.
of HOAs and try and get some
Right.
people to show up.
That would be tremendous.
I mean, there's money to be saved with these basin retrofits. You're not mowing, you're using less fertilizer and pesticides and herbicides, and I think I alluded in my email that I sent to the members here. There is sort of getting past that mentality that this sort of shaggy, overgrown look is preferable to this manicured golf course look.
Right.
And that's that's like sort of an education that you have to
That's exactly
to make, and then hopefully people will accept it. So.
Dan, I have a question for you relating to this. Didn't you say at one point that the woman from Wren mentioned one other possible project, something having to do with GIS?
So I asked, is it key, like I talked about this, that we had 4 partners last year on our grant, and Garrett Hill, again, I believe had 7 or 8. Is it about this thing? And certainly a huge factor for them is seeing these partnerships created between different entities. But she said that the other big thing is innovation. And so if you have a really neat idea on how to use technology or whatever it might be, and again, just the example she threw out was, if you created some kind of publicly accessible GIS database, and she didn't even give an example of what that might be, that might be something that might be considered. And I didn't go back and see if they list every project for probably the last 12 or 15 years, I think, on their website that they funded. I didn't go back and see if there was something like that.
If the township has maps of all the detention basins in the township? Would that be something?
I believe the township's got a decent GIS setup right now, and I got to believe those are in. I can check with Steve Norsini on that. And I know there's software. Steve Elliott, too bad he's not here. He's a whiz on this stuff. That's what he does for a living. I know there is then a way to make that. You basically download a little app, a free app, and then you can access these databases if they're in the right system. So, it's certainly something that I would think that the township sort of has the groundwork to make something like that possible. Now, are they looking to have public access to it? I don't know. So.
Yeah. Well, this is very, very important, and hopefully we can keep moving forward on it. So thank you. Thank
Sure.
you both.
Can I put in a little Birdtown plug?
Please.
Since we are now a bird town and we have the affiliation with Audubon, I hope that a number of people participated in the Great Backyard Bird Count. But one of the things that we can do to promote awareness, and one of the things that Audubon absolutely emphasizes, is keeping a natural native habitat to promote birds. And that improves the sustainability of the entire ecosystem that we're part of. So one of the things that each of us can do is to go to the Audubon website and to go through the process of registering your home for as a bird town home. And that will send you a little sign. I think you probably have to make a small contribution for it. But one of the things that the Bird Town group is hoping is that we'll be able to raise awareness of the program by having more of those signs popping up around the township. So I encourage everyone to do that.
Great. Good. All right. I don't know if there's any other new business, old business. If not, I think we can adjourn. Thank you all.